What's up, everyone? Hope you're all crushing this week and having an absolutely fantastic Tuesday. If things aren't going great, well, hopefully this video can turn that around and make your day a little brighter. And man, oh man, I know exactly why you clicked on this video.
You know why you're here, and I know why I'm here.
It's time for the massive Alabama Crimson Tide versus Georgia Bulldogs preview, and let me tell you, I am absolutely pumped about this one. I really hope you guys are just as excited as I am right now. Honestly, I don't think any words can truly do justice to what we're about to witness. This is legitimately one of the most anticipated games of the entire season. Without question, this is one of the biggest, most important games we'll see all year long. And here's the thing, you can completely throw those rankings right out the window. I know most people think of a big game as typically being a top 10 matchup, or maybe sometimes you get those special top 5 clashes, but this one's completely different. If you're from anywhere in the Southeast, if you bleed Alabama crimson or Georgia red and black, then you already understand exactly what I'm talking about. For the past 10 years or so, these two programs have been hands down the best programs in all of college football. When you're talking about the pursuit of a national championship, more often than not, if you're either Georgia or Alabama, you've had to go through the other team to get there. Now, here's where this whole thing gets really interesting from a historical perspective. Georgia and Alabama, traditionally speaking, haven't been each other's biggest rivals throughout history. But because of all this recent success, because of all these massive games they've played against each other, they've evolved into legitimate, big-time rivals. I already know what all my Alabama fans are sitting there thinking right now. Whoa, hold up there, Matt. We're actually considering Georgia a rival now? I thought for something to be a legitimate rivalry matchup, both teams actually had to, compete in it. We've beaten Georgia 9 out of the last 10 times we've played them. And you know what? You're absolutely, completely correct about that. I can't even really call that a fun fact because I'm pretty sure most of you already know that statistic by now. Alabama has indeed beaten Georgia 9 out of the last 10 games between these two teams. But here's what's absolutely crazy about that whole situation. I would honestly say that Georgia has outplayed Alabama in more than half of those 9 losses. Yet somehow, some way, Alabama has managed to win almost every single one of those games. We're definitely going to dive deeper into that phenomenon a little later in this breakdown. Consider that a bit of foreshadowing for you. There's definitely a mental edge, a psychological advantage that Alabama holds over Georgia. And I'm not just talking about the football teams themselves or the coaching staffs. I'm talking about the entire fan bases as well. This mental component is real, and it's powerful. I think I've hyped this matchup up enough at this point. This is truly a monumental, earth-shaking game. Last year, in Kalen DeBoer's very first season as Alabama's head coach, everybody and their brother thought that Kirby Smart and Georgia were finally going to send DeBoer and Alabama a message. Georgia was finally going to get over that massive psychological hump of beating Alabama. But as Lee Corso loves to say, not so fast, my friend. Alabama absolutely obliterated Georgia in the first half of that game. However, the second half told a completely different story. Georgia actually wound up taking the lead in that game, and then the Ryan Williams incident happened. To this day, that remains one of the, I don't even want to say craziest, but one of the absolute weirdest games I've ever watched in my entire life. The whole thing just didn't even feel real. How can I put this into proper perspective for you? It genuinely felt like I was watching two completely separate football games. The Alabama team we saw dominating in the first half was absolutely not the same Alabama team you saw struggling in the second half. And the exact same thing can be said about Georgia. Georgia wound up taking a 1-point lead, 34-33. Then Ryan Williams pulled off that incredible twirly-twirl 3,000 catch. Alabama jumped back up 41-34, and then Carson Beck threw that absolutely crushing interception right in the end zone. That was the end of the game, and it left Georgia fans completely devastated and heartbroken yet again in another game against Alabama. I've said this exact same thing every single year that I've talked about this particular matchup, and I'm going to say it again right now. This is why I believe you should value our predictions on this channel more than anybody else's out there. Because in the entire history of having this YouTube channel, I have literally never predicted an Alabama-Georgia game wrong. Not once. Never missed. Y'all remember back in 2021, man, I can't believe that was already 4 years ago, we made one of the best videos of all time on this channel. I said, Georgia is in serious trouble. Jamison Williams is not going to be stopped. He's going to absolutely light up that secondary. Bryce Young is going to throw for 300, 400 yards. They're not going to have any answer for him whatsoever. And well, what do you know? That's exactly what happened. Alabama completely stomped on them 41-24, but remember, Georgia still made the playoff as the 4 seed. And they made it all the way to the national championship game, where they had a rematch with Alabama. That time around, I picked Georgia to win that game. So don't be one of these internet nerds talking about, well, of course you got them all right, Matt, because Alabama's won every single matchup. No, no, no. The one time Georgia actually beat Alabama, I picked them to do exactly that. Ever since then, I have picked Alabama to win every single time. In 2022, fortunately for Georgia, they didn't even play each other. In 2023, they played and Alabama won, beating Carson Beck. And last year, they beat Carson Beck again, and we all know exactly what happened there. Heck, man, I remember that 2023 prediction like it was yesterday. I remember heading into that video thinking, and I actually stated this in the video, and I still believe it to this day, Georgia had the better football team. But Alabama had that mental edge over them, so I was taking Alabama. Alabama played really well in that game. Georgia had a costly fumble. Alabama had what was like one controversial, or maybe it was 2 controversial plays that went their way. And what do you know? Alabama pulled out another one against the Bulldogs. Now we fast forward to our current matchup, and unlike all those previous games, there are a lot of question marks surrounding this one. And I'm not even just talking about Alabama. There are question marks about Georgia as well. I'm going to remind some of y'all about something important. Don't just look at that pretty undefeated record sitting next to Georgia's name. Kirby Smart himself told you after their game that they should have lost to Tennessee. They didn't play that well at all. That defense looked concerning anytime you give up a 40-burger like that. It's just not a good defensive performance. And that's definitely concerning for Georgia moving forward. Sure, the offense looked good against Tennessee, but I'd honestly like to see a little bit more consistency out of Gunnar Stockton before I'm completely sold. On the flip side, when we're talking about Alabama, I mean, come on. Do you really want me to sit up here and tell you something you should already know? Obviously, there are a ton of question marks because you got absolutely curb-stomped by those Vanderbilt Commodores only a few weeks ago. Sure, you've taken care of business since then, beating a couple of cupcakes in Wisconsin, but I think we all know that this Georgia game is a completely different beast and animal altogether. In my humble opinion, this is Alabama's first real test since that disastrous Florida State game. And here's some bad news for Alabama. You're playing on the road this time. Here's a fun fact for the day, and don't worry, I've got a bunch of them for this video. Do you know what Kalen DeBoer's record is when playing at home? He's 9-0. Go ahead and clap it up for that. That's literally perfect. Do you know what his record is when playing on the road? 2-4. Now, would you like to know if that's going to factor into my decision today? I'll leave you with this. We're not even close to this video being over, and absolutely it's going to factor heavily into my decision. Are you kidding me? Let me ask you a question, Timothy and Bobby. Have you actually seen this Alabama team play on the road over the past couple of years? They absolutely suck on the road. It's really not that complicated to figure out. A spade is a spade, and DeBoer's teams have been absolutely awful when playing on the road. But here's the interesting kicker with all of that. It almost feels like this could potentially be the game that turns everything around for them. If Alabama can somehow go into Athens, Georgia, and upset the Bulldogs, and yes, I would absolutely consider this an upset, this could be the starting point for something special. I'm not saying this single game would erase all those previous road losses, but this could legitimately feel like the game where they get their mojo and swagger back on the road and never look back again. I don't think this is necessarily just for the players, but especially for Kalen DeBoer, because you know he's going to be thinking about all those road struggles. I truly believe he needs not just a good, but a great road win to really establish himself. For Kirby Smart and the Bulldogs, well, they're in Athens, Georgia. That place is going to be absolutely rocking. I'm sure it's going to be an absolutely outstanding atmosphere. If I were a Georgia fan, I'd be feeling way more comfortable and secure than any Alabama fan, and for the exact same reasons Alabama fans felt secure for 15 years. When you had Nick Saban, you never had to worry about your team being ready to go. Same thing applies to Georgia now. When you have Kirby Smart, Nick Saban 2.0, whatever you want to call him, you don't have to worry about whether your team is going to show up. They're going to show up ready to play. The real question is Alabama going to show up ready to play? I honestly don't know if Alabama will show up the way they need to. You would think they would be ready. You'd think they'd be absolutely hyped up for such an anticipated road game, but they weren't hyped up or ready for that Florida State game. They weren't ready to go in that one at all. I don't think this scenario is likely to happen, but there's definitely a legitimate case and scenario where what happened against Florida State could happen again in this game, if not worse. Georgia could beat them by 28 points. They absolutely could do that. That type of blowout would never have happened with Nick Saban coaching, but now things are obviously different. Let's talk about quarterback play for a little bit, because we've got two new starters, which really intrigues me. We've got Gunnar Stockton for Georgia and Ty Simpson for Alabama. Both of these guys, let's give them a nice little golf clap, have had absolutely stellar starts to their season so far. Stockton doesn't have quite the touchdown numbers that Ty Simpson has accumulated. He only has 4 touchdowns on the year compared to Simpson's 9 touchdowns. But here's something I think is definitely worth noting and paying attention to. Both of these quarterbacks combined have 0, I'm going to say that again for emphasis, 0 interceptions this season. That's pretty impressive. What does that tell you about both of these young men? They absolutely know how to take care of the football, which is crucial. Outside of those 0 interceptions, both of them are currently ranked in the top 15 in the nation in total QBR. Really impressive statistical lines from both of these guys, especially because heading into this season, absolutely nobody was talking about them. Nobody gave either of them any love whatsoever. When people were discussing some of the best quarterbacks in the SEC this year, Gunnar Stockton and Ty Simpson's names were never brought up in those conversations. I think they've both looked pretty darn good up to this point in the season. Little side note to throw in here while I'm thinking about it. Alabama is getting 2 star players back for this game. Tim Keenan on the defensive line and Jam Miller, their star running back. That's definitely going to help them out significantly. Offensively, I'm going to give the edge to Alabama in this matchup. Defensively, even though Georgia hasn't looked all that great, we just talked about them giving up 40 points to Tennessee, I'm still giving the defensive edge to Georgia. Here's why I'm making that choice. I simply don't trust this Alabama defense right now. I just don't. Sure, they've looked great over the past couple of weeks, but yet again, we're going to go back to this same point. They really haven't played anybody of significance. I absolutely don't like defenses that play soft, and Alabama's defense against Florida State and dating back to last year has been soft at times. I can't say the same thing about Georgia's defense, so I'll give Georgia the edge on defense without any problem whatsoever. But on the offensive side of the ball, I think Alabama has more star power and explosive playmakers. And I know exactly who you immediately thought of when I said that. Ryan Williams, right? Wrong. Well, he is absolutely a great player too, don't get me wrong. But he's not even the best wide receiver that Alabama has on their roster. If you follow Alabama closely, you already know this. The best wide receiver on that team is Jeremy Bernard. Keep your eyes glued on him throughout this game. Heck, I said best wide receiver, but he might actually be the overall best player on Alabama's entire roster. Whenever we have big-time games like this one, I like to give you 3 specific keys for each team to focus on. Let's start with Alabama first. Key number 1. And this is something you would tell a middle school football team, which is honestly sad that I have to say this, but Alabama's defense needs to hear it loud and clear. If they don't do this basic thing, we can't even get into the X's and O's of the game. On defense, they need to play hard and be disciplined. I'm not even going to elaborate past that point. Just play hard with discipline. I hate that I have to say something so fundamental. I've never had to say that about an Alabama football team in 20 years of watching them, but here we are in 2024, key number 2, we'll focus on the offensive side of the ball. Ty Simpson is genuinely a really good thrower. He's accurate, has a good arm, and he's even a better athlete than what most people give him credit for. But if the running game doesn't step up and help him out, it's not going to be pretty at all. It's going to be very similar to what happened in that disaster against Florida State. Jam Miller is coming back from injury, and I'd like to believe that's going to provide the spark that the rushing attack desperately needs. Lord knows they need it badly. The way things are looking this year, Alabama is predominantly going to be a passing team, which is completely fine. I'm not saying they have to rush for 300 yards against Georgia's defense, but here's exactly what I am going to say. They absolutely have to make Georgia respect the run, and they need to get, here's my ballpark figure, around 150 rushing yards. That's my magic number for this game. If Alabama manages to get over 150 rushing yards, they win this game. If they get under that number, they lose. Key number 3, we'll go back to the defensive side. After you get everyone playing hard and disciplined, with everybody doing their specific role and accounting for who they need to account for, you absolutely have to stop Georgia's running game. Notice that I haven't really talked much about Gunnar Stockton as a major threat. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback at all, and I'm not trying to discredit him in any way, but I'm just not worried about him as a major game changer. This isn't like facing a Tommy DeVito type of guy where you really have to worry about the quarterback running all over your defense. But what you absolutely do have to worry about is those Georgia running backs running all over your defense instead. This isn't any brand new information or revolutionary knowledge. Georgia is going to ground and pound you into submission, and if you don't find a way to stop them, well, they're definitely not going to stop themselves. I think Stockton is good enough to beat you through the air if it comes to that, but you at least have to force him into that position. If this makes sense, you have to make Gunnar Stockton beat you through the air instead of letting Georgia beat you on the ground. If you can stop their running game and force some 3rd and 7 situations where they have to pass the ball, and Stockton completes it anyway, then we just clap it up for him and say, you know what? They outplayed us today. You absolutely have to get Georgia into those 3rd and 7+ situations. Even 3rd and 6+ situations would be helpful. If it's 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4 the entire game, that's exactly where Georgia wants to be operating. Alabama needs some big plays on defense. It would be nice if they could pick off a pass, get a scoop, and score. Something impactful like that. Now let's talk about the 3 keys for Georgia to focus on. Key number 1 involves 2 specific players, Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard. Track them relentlessly. Don't lose sight of them for even a second. They are absolutely good enough to beat you by themselves if Ty Simpson can manage to get them the ball in space. I hate to say that Alabama has the best wide receiving core in the entire nation, but here's one thing I'm almost completely certain of. Alabama definitely has one of the better wide receiver groups that Georgia is going to face during their entire season. They have some other talented wide receivers too, like Isaiah Horton, and the list goes on and on. But Williams and Bernard are the main 2 threats you have to focus on. You have to be on them 24/7 throughout the entire game. And even if you're covering them perfectly, as we saw last year with that incredible twirly-twirl 3000 catch, it might not even matter. Ryan Williams had 2 defenders on him and still made them look absolutely silly. Key number 2 for Georgia. We'll keep it on the defensive side of the ball because I think it matters tremendously. Blitz, 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 and then continue to blitz some more. Ty Simpson, when he has plenty of time in the pocket, is legitimately one of the best quarterbacks in the entire nation. When he has consistent pressure applied to him, I'm not going to say he's one of the worst quarterbacks, but here's the thing. He gets flustered just like all quarterbacks do when pressured. Apply that pressure constantly. Be the hunter in this game, not the hunted. You need to dictate what Alabama does offensively, not the other way around. Make them react to what you're doing defensively. Key number 3 focuses on Gunnar Stockton. I love you as a player, my man, but please don't try to be a superhero in this game. You're playing at home. You have what I believe is a sound, reliable defense behind you. Make Alabama go out there and beat you with their execution. Don't beat yourself with poor decisions or risky throws. We've seen this happen with Georgia many times against Alabama over the years. They'll find ways to beat themselves instead of making Alabama earn it. Don't do that in this game. This Alabama football team doesn't need any additional help from you. I don't even want to see any trick plays or gimmicky stuff. Do not put your team in positions where they can fail unnecessarily. Let them hand the ball off, complete short passes, and take your deep shots occasionally when they're truly there. But if there's ever a questionable pass situation, if it's 1st and 10, 2nd and 10, and you think you might be able to squeeze a throw into a tight window, don't even try it. Just throw the ball out of bounds and live to see another down. Those are my 3 keys for this game. Now let's talk about the mental aspect of this matchup, because we absolutely have to bring this up. You're thinking about it right now. The Georgia players are definitely thinking about it, and so are the Alabama players. And yes, it absolutely does matter and will impact this game. Georgia knows it exists. They're not stupid. There is definitely a legitimate stigma and psychological barrier where it's like, oh man, we just can't seem to beat these guys no matter what we do. It doesn't matter if we get up by 14 points like they did in that SEC championship game where Jalen Hurts came in and saved the day when Tua got injured. It doesn't matter if we're winning in the national championship game where it was the other way around. Jalen Hurts went out of the game and Tua came in to save the day for Alabama. We just can't seem to put these guys away when it matters most. It's not even like you can just feel it or sense it in the atmosphere. You can literally see it with your own 2 eyeballs. Georgia consistently plays timid and tentative against Alabama, especially in the second half of games. They absolutely have to put an end to that pattern if they want to win this game. But I think for Alabama, this is going to be absolutely key for their chances. If they can just hang around in this game and keep it competitive, even if they're losing by 7 points at halftime, As long as they're keeping it respectable and within striking distance, they're going to have a really good chance to win. Because the longer Alabama stays in this game, the more Georgia is going to start thinking, oh man, here we go again. Are we really going to blow another one against these guys? If you're Alabama, I'd say, although this isn't a perfect scenario, if the score is 17-10 heading into the fourth quarter, or 24-17, and you're only down by 7 points, I'd say that's essentially a win for Alabama's chances. The pressure will be entirely on Georgia at that point. I saw one of the funniest comments ever the other day that perfectly captures this dynamic. A Georgia fan said, I don't care if Alabama is 0-11 heading into the game against Georgia. Everybody knows they're somehow going to magically transform into the 1990 San Francisco 49ers. I have never heard anyone refer to a team as the 1990 San Francisco 49ers before. That was absolutely hilarious and perfectly stated. But seriously, Georgia fans understand this psychological dynamic more than anybody else. It's exactly why they're not even acting cocky or overconfident heading into this game, despite their higher ranking and home field advantage. Alabama simply has their number mentally, and everyone knows it. When it comes to actually predicting this game, though, y'all know my golden rules that I always follow. Anytime we have a close game, or what we think is going to be a close, competitive game, which I absolutely think this will be, I have to go with the quarterback I trust more and the team and coach I trust more in big moments. When it comes to quarterback play in this specific game, we're going to call that a complete wash. I think it would be unfair to give either side a significant advantage. They're essentially 1A and 1B in terms of what they bring to the table, so that now leaves us with evaluating the teams themselves and, more importantly, the head coaches. Kirby Smart versus Kalen DeBoer. And you want to know which head coach I trust more in a big game situation? Are you kidding me? It's not even up for debate or discussion. Kirby Smart, without question. You want to know which team I trust more to execute when it matters most? Same exact answer. The Georgia Bulldogs. I simply don't trust this current Alabama football team in big moments. Why in the world would I pick a team that I don't trust to play well on the road against a team that I do trust, especially when the road team is 2-4 away from home dating back to last year? I'm telling you right now, if this game was being played in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, we would be having a completely different conversation and analysis. But all I know for certain is that this game is being played on the road for Alabama, and it is absolutely not a smart, logical pick to choose Alabama in this spot. When we make these predictions, my job is to make the best educated guess that's humanly possible, and I truly believe that picking Georgia is the best guess I can make given all the available information. I genuinely do. Anytime I pick against Alabama, which honestly hasn't happened very many times on this channel, maybe this is only the second or third time ever, I always have to throw in this disclaimer because you're inevitably going to have some people saying, oh, Matt's a fake Alabama fan. I can't believe he's actually picking against his own team. Listen up, Timothy and Bobby. Just because I pick against Alabama in a specific game doesn't mean I'm not a legitimate Alabama fan. My job and responsibility is to analyze and predict these games to the absolute best of my ability. I don't let what team I personally root for get in the way of making objective predictions. I've always said this and nothing will change. I pride myself on being a college football analyst first, Alabama fan second. Nothing's going to change that approach. Secondly, let me clarify something important. Does this mean I'm actively rooting for Alabama to lose this game? Does this mean I'm rooting for Georgia to win? Absolutely not. I genuinely hope I'm completely wrong about this prediction. I want Alabama to win this game. That's the Alabama fan in me talking. But obviously, I don't think they will win. Because I'm predicting against them based on my analysis, I'll take the Bulldogs to win this one. Let me give you a final score prediction. Georgia 31, Alabama 24. There are many more things I could say about this matchup, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you think down in the comments below.